The site inspection, essentially.
Police would essentially get to the police here in Orange Farm, essentially calling a...
That was essentially the very, essentially, and she's essentially said, no way, 3 weeks, essentially. Essentially the 15.3 to essentially provide money to people that
Pravin Gordhan would essentially...
So essentially,
that's essentially what's happened is... Well, essentially they're arguing, Griselda. Well, essentially what they're arguing is that essentially they weren't given an opportunity. Well, essentially what we've heard is that the bank station that will essentially ask, saying that essentially anyone should be... Well, essentially what it means is that state capture in Gordhan is essentially trying to do...
we're essentially in... Well, essentially what they were saying is, I think what Lawson raised, this legal action as essentially clear that he was essentially waiting for the pronouncement, essentially discounting what the court to essentially offer was essentially what drove this whole
out to him, that essentially what he's asking, well, essentially, Andrew,
it found that essentially that Sean Abrams essentially 3 judges that essentially he's back in court, essentially remove him.
Conjecture essentially that
cannot actually touch what happened here. No one here can actually just...
What actually they'll be doing, he actually says that people are actually who will actually win. Q is actually people that have actually... It's actually quite interesting.